Hi, welcome everyone to Nikki Loves Books. I'm of course Nikki, and today we are going to be going over What the Hell Happened in Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the first book in the Throne of Glass series. It is one of my favorite series. I highly recommend it. So Throne of Glass is considered a young adult fantasy. I find it incredibly intriguing and there's a lot to it. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. This of course is a recap, so if you don't like spoilers, please stop watching because I am going to be ruining the whole entire book for you. So just keep that in mind. So to give you some backstory, Throne of Glass does take place in a fantasy world on the continent of Aurelia, specifically a kingdom known as Ardalan is where most of the story takes place. So Ardalan is ruled by a man simply known as the King of Ardalan. We don't know his name, it's simply King of Ardalan. So the King of Ardalan is a complete tyrant and he has conquered most of the other kingdoms in Aurelia. He is also at war with Wendelin, which is a kingdom across the sea. We do also know that he has outlawed magic, fairies, and fae. So all those things once upon a time existed in Aurelia and he's completely outlawed them, and mysteriously magic actually disappeared after he made that proclamation. So our main character is a young woman named Selena Sardathian. Things to know about her is that she was once known as Ardalan's assassin, so she was the top assassin in the country. We do find out that she did have magic of some sort before it disappeared, so when she was a young child, we don't know what that is or what it entailed. She is from Terrasan, which is a kingdom north of Ardalan that was conquered by Ardalan years ago. So she is an orphan. Both her parents were killed when she was about 8 years old. So she was found and raised by Arobin Hamel, king of assassins and leader of the Assassins Guild in Ardalan. Sadly, when we meet our protagonist, she is a prisoner in a labor camp known as the salt mines of Endovier for the past year. So some other things to know about Selena is that prior to her being captured, her first love, Sam, was killed, and that his death and her capture were due to a betrayal, and she's unsure of who this is and is definitely wanting to know. The other thing to know is that she was whipped multiple times while she was a prisoner for the past year in the salt mines, and so she does have scars down her back, and specifically 3 really big long scars all the way down her back. So when Throne of Glass opens, finds Selena in the salt mines of Endovier, and she is pulled out of the labor camp by Kael Westfall. So Kael Westfall is the captain of the Royal Guard. We do find out that he abdicated his title as Lord of Eniel to become captain of the guard. So he did do this job against his father's will, and he is best friends to Dorian. And Dorian is the crown prince of Ardalan. So Kael does release Selena from the salt mines on Dorian's orders. So some things to know about Dorian Havillard is that, of course, he's the crown prince of Ardalan. He is best friends with Kael, and then he also doesn't seem to get along with his father, the king of Ardalan. We do see him argue with his father quite a bit. He doesn't seem to outright rebel. It's more like he shows disrespect and insolence, but he also seems to be very cautious around his father. And also we see Kael, who's constantly, telling Dorian to be careful with how far he pushes his father. So there is that dynamic. So Dorian meets with Selena and wants her to be his champion in a competition to become the king's champion. If she wins this competition after 4 years of service as the king's champion, she will have earned her freedom. So he's basically offering her something that she can't refuse. It's either go back to the salt mines and die eventually, or do this competition, become his champion, and if she wins the competition, she gets to have her freedom back. So it's really kind of a no-brainer. So Selena obviously accepts, because there's no arguing with that. And she does move into the glass castle of Rifthold, and that is where the royal family lives. That is the capital of Ardaland, and all the other champions are there as well. So upon entering the castle, Selena is told by Dorian and Kaol that she must hide her identity as Selena Sardathian and Ardaland's assassin. They don't want people to know who she is. They don't want to know that she is as good as she is. So outside the competition, they ask that Selena go by a different name and pretend to be some sort of courtier, basically Dorian's flavor of the month, if you will. And then inside the competition, she is known simply as a thief. You know, there's no mention of her being an assassin. Again, they kind of don't want anyone to realize how good she is and who she is. So upon entering the castle and, getting settled in, she does meet some new people. Some of them that are absolutely noteworthy is Lady Kaltain Rompier. So Kaltain is a minor courtier who has eyes for the crown. She is extremely ambitious and, is practically throwing herself at Dorian, trying to get his attention. And obviously thinking Selena is a lady, and specifically Dorian's flavor of the week, Kaltain really hates Selena right off the bat. Selena's not too fond of her either, simply because of her catty attitude and her shallowness. It's just, Selena is someone who has depth, who wants to know about people, wants to know how they work and have actually valid, meaningful conversations, while Kaltain tends to be one of those people who's into gossip, talking bad about people, really into fashion, and doesn't want to get beyond the surface. So Kaltain and Selena definitely not friends. So the other things that we find out about Kaltain is that she suffers from frequent debilitating headaches and actually uses opium to try to ease her pain. The other thing to know that is important is that she does seem to have sort of an arrangement with Duke Parrington, who we'll introduce in just a second. So the arrangement to everyone outside seems to be like she's already spoken for, that they plan on getting married. What we find from her point of view is that she basically hinted at, sexual favors if he brought her to court. So again, she's not really into the Duke, she's into Dorian. She wants the crown, but to everyone else, it seems like they are together because he, of course, brought her, because she couldn't just show up at the palace by herself. So Duke Parrington is a odious man. He is creepy, he's cruel as far as we can tell, and he is the most trusted advisor to the King of Ardalan. The other things to know about him is he does wear a black ring that people kind of notice he looks at a lot. It is mentioned in the book quite a bit, this black ring. He doesn't like Selena. He does know her true identity, and he does not like her. He also has his own champion in the tournament for the King's Champion, and his champion is known as Cain, and Cain is a terrifyingly big soldier who has a terrible personality to go with it, and he does seem to get bigger as the competition goes on, so a little strange. And someone else that Selena gets the pleasure of knowing is Nox Owen. Nox Owen is another champion in the competition and a thief from somewhere else in Aurelia. Nox and Selena do build a friendship, and it's practically the only friendship she makes with any of the other champions. The other character that is really important to mention is Nehema Yetker. So she is a princess of Eloe, and Eloe is one of the southern kingdoms in Aurelia that, of course, Ardalan has conquered. So Nehemia is at the castle in Riftfold, and she seems to be there to help negotiate and smooth things over between Ardalan and Eloise. But what's interesting is she's actually known for her open support of the Eloise rebels, which of course are the rebels fighting against Ardalan, against the occupation of their kingdom. She is also openly trying to shut down one of the labor camps at Calicula, which is where a lot of the people at Eloise end up being put, especially if they are rebels. Celaena and Nehemia do become fast friends, as Celaena and Nehemia are both children of conquered and occupied lands. So there is a connection there automatically about the suffering of their people and being witness to the tyranny and violence of Ardalan. It does also help that Celaena does speak Eloise, and this is due to her spending a year in the labor camp, so she learned it from other prisoners. And as far as anyone knows, Nehemia does not have a good understanding or ability to speak or understand the common language. So Nehemia and Celaena are able to communicate in Eloise, and Nehemia does ask Celaena to help her with learning the common language, and so they do spend quite a bit of time together and foster a good friendship. So the competition does proceed for the champions, and Celaena does end up saving Nox's life during one of these tests. Obviously, the competition itself is very deadly, but to make things worse, there's actually more champions dying outside of the competition than in it. So we do find that champions are being found, brutally mauled and dismembered outside of the competition. So their bodies are usually found in different places throughout the palace, and interesting marks are found near the bodies written in blood. So oddly enough, these markings are found also on the tiles outside a creepy clock tower that the King of Ardalan had put up a few years prior. This clock tower has creepy, scary gargoyles on it, which normally I don't find gargoyles creepy, but these ones are supposed to be like creepy, like not supposed to make you feel safe at all, even though they're the guardians. And so you got the gargoyles on the clock tower. They're surrounded by these markings. So these markings are called word marks, and they exist and can be used outside of magic. So again, remember that magic mysteriously has disappeared in Aurelia. There's no information about outside of Aurelia if magic still exists, but for all we know at this time, magic does not exist in Aurelia, and yet word marks are able to be used and they have power to them. We also find that word marks can be used to open gates. So they can open gates to what they call other worlds, so realms beyond the realm that they're currently in. So again, word marks can be used to open word gates, gates between realms and other worlds. So regardless of champions being found dead with word marks around their bodies and no killer in sight or any suspicion, the competition continues going forward. Celaena and Dorian have a flirtation, and they are very much drawn to each other. Chaol, of course, does not approve. He is terrified for Dorian to be even alone with Celaena. So Chaol and Celaena do spend quite a bit of time together training, but also because Chaol doesn't trust her. So there is very much an animosity that between Chaol and Celaena. There's definitely a judgment from Chaol about what she was before, being an assassin. And you know, as he gets to learn her stories, he finds out like she didn't have any say. You know, she was orphaned as a child, found by the King of Assassins, trained, and then told that she had to pay everything back that Arobin put towards her training and her upbringing. You know, so food, rent, her clothing, anything like that, and any training. So as Chaol learns more things about Selena and the person she is, there is a good amount of respect that builds between them, and they start warming up to each other. But again, it doesn't mean Chaol is supportive of Dorian having any sort of relationship with Selena. One night, Selena does find a hidden door behind a tapestry in her bedroom at the castle. Hey everyone, before we continue with what the hell happened in Throne of Glass, don't forget to subscribe. You know where that button is, just down below. Go ahead and subscribe, and look forward to my future book reviews and book recaps, only here at Nikki Loves Books. Through the hidden door is multiple passages, and two of the things that Selena finds that are noteworthy is, one, a forgotten secret exit through the sewer. So she does understand that she has the opportunity to run, and no one would know until they checked her rooms hours later. So she does make a note of, okay, she has an escape route. She does realize too that the King of Ardalan would never let her leave, and so she realizes that she would be hunted down, but she has an escape route. Two, the most interesting thing that's in this passage is a tomb. She finds an old door in one of the passages and goes in to discover a tomb. So she realizes that there's a sarcophagus there, and it is of Elena, the first princess of Terrasan, first queen of Ardalan. She is a warrior. She did fall in love with Gavin, who ended up being the first king of Ardalan. She fell in love with him on the battlefield during the demon wars against Arwen. So all we know about this Arwen is that he's considered a Dark Lord, so someone definitely evil. This Dark Lord Arwen was slain with Damarius, the sword of Gavin, who again was the first king of Ardalan. The other thing to know about Elena, his wife, is that she is the half-fate daughter of Brannon, who was the king of Terrasan. So after realizing who the sarcophagus belonged to, she then realized that there's a second one of Gavin, the first king of Ardalan, and his sword, Damarius, the sword that slain the Dark Lord Arwen, is in the tomb as well. The other interesting thing about the tomb is it's covered in ward marks. Another night later, Selena has what she believes is a dream but ends up being real, is that Elena's spirit comes from one of the other worlds, so one of the other realms, and gives Selena the Eye of Elena, an amulet for protection. She gives Selena a bunch of cryptic messages that are not helpful. So tells Selena there's a great evil in the castle. Selena must destroy it. She must be the one who becomes the king's champion. She goes on to say things like everything happens for a reason. You're here for a reason. You were trained as an assassin for a reason. So everything happens for a reason, which I'm not arguing with that. I actually believe that in a lot of ways. But the messages aren't really helpful. They're a lot more cryptic and not direct at all. The only positive thing is that Elena does tell Selena how to win one of the tests in the competition. And again, of course, it was cryptic. It was like, turn right. And I'm like, if you're just told randomly to turn right, like, well, you're not gonna know what that means. So Selena thankfully did figure it out, because I think it was like turn right and you'll know the answer, or you'll figure it out, or whatever the case may be. So Selena was able to grasp the context once the situation appeared, but I'm just like, that was a huge jump in my opinion sometimes. So Selena receives a puppy as a gift for Yulemas from Dorian, names her Fleetfoot. Nothing important about that at this time, except it's really cute. Who doesn't like a little puppy? So Nehemia reveals to Selena that she speaks the common tongue just fine, she understands it just fine, and she tricked everyone. It's with this revelation that Selena is better able to put together that Nehemia is not there to negotiate, not there to play nice with the King of Ardalan. So Selena is a little bit more wary and suspicious of Nehemia at this time. Selena then also discovers ward marks drawn underneath her bed in shock, as well as word marks written down on a piece of paper by Nehemia. This leads to Selena believing that Nehemia is behind the attacks on the champions, and is able to rationalize it in the sense of, that it would cause some chaos and turmoil for the King of Arlen. Selena does sneak into a ball, and that's one of my favorite scenes, is kind of the Cinderella scene. And Selena sneaks into this ball and hopes to keep an eye on Nehemia. After the ball, Dorian and Selena do kiss and start somewhat of a secret relationship. I wouldn't necessarily, say it's anything serious, but they're definitely enjoying each other's company and being physically intimate with each other. So that starts. We do see a scene where the Dick, he is kind of a dick, so I might as well call him Dick Parrington. So Duke Parrington hatches a plan with Kaltain to prevent Selena from winning the King's Champion. So Duke Parrington actually tells Kaltain who Selena really is. Selena is not this courtier that everyone believes she is. She is Arlen's assassin, and Kaltain must do everything she can to protect Dorian. So, Kaltain in her head, she is doing what she needs to for the good of the crown and the good for Dorian. So she doesn't think she's doing something wrong. She thinks she's protecting Dorian. Meanwhile, Selena discovers Kane. So again, Kane is Duke Parrington's champion in the competition. So Selena discovers Kane in the secret passageways under the castle. She sees Kane using ward marks and is summoning a creature from another realm. This creature, we find out, is known as the Ridderak, and he is using the Ridderak to kill the other champions and actually absorb their strength upon their death. Upon being discovered, of course, Kane sends the Ridderak after Selena. Selena, thankfully, is able to kill the Ridderak with Demarius when she ran back to the tomb. But she is bitten by the Ridderak and it poisons her. Nehemia ends up saving and healing Selena with ward marks. And this is interesting because up until this point, the ward marks have been consistently used for bad things. So we see the ward marks around the victims, we see the ward marks around the creepy clock tower, and of course Kane is using the ward marks. So up until this point, it really seemed like ward marks were bad, but now we see someone using the ward marks for good. And then of course we need to remember that the ward marks were throughout the tomb for Elena and Gavin. So this is really important to realize that the word marks are really not necessarily good or evil. It depends on the intention of the user, but they are very powerful for both bad things and good things. So after Nehemia saved Selena's life, Selena did open up to Nehemia, told Nehemia who she really was, that she was in fact Selena Sardathian, Arlen's assassin, and Nehemia did give Selena a new name. She named her Alentia, which means spirit that could not be broken. So Alentia is the name that Nehemia chooses to call Selena. So after Selena realizes the depth and danger of what is really happening, taking out the champions, so Selena goes to Nox, the other champion who she became friends with, Thief, and tells him who she really is and warns him to leave the castle immediately, thus saving his life yet again, because he does do as she tells him. So finally we get to the final test in the competition, and of course it's a duel, and the remaining participants are Selena and of course Kane. So right before the duel ensues, Kaltain proposes a toast and drugs Selena's drink. Due to the drug's effect, Selena gets her ass kicked big time by Cain, and it's pretty awful. Like, it's a pretty brutal beatdown. And she starts to see demons and monsters that exist in her world, but not of this world. So it's kind of the in-between. And so she's witnessing demons from other worlds that have entered into hers, and they do attack her on Cain's commands. So it seems that Cain is privy to these creatures from the other world, and he's able to command them. Knowing that Selena was about to lose the battle, because it wasn't really being waged fair, you know, Selena was drugged, and then you also have the monsters from the other world attacking her and listening to Cain. Nehemia does use ward marks to summon Elena. Elena's spirit does show up. She's able to fight off the demons attacking Selena from the other world, and she pulls the poison out of Selena. Selena then is able to continue her fight. During this fight, a ward mark does appear on Selena's forehead. A few people see it. No one knows what it means. It does disappear soon after. Selena finally wins against Cain and is declared the victor. However, regardless of losing and having his life spared by Selena, Cain does try to stab Selena in the back, and Kaol actually kills Cain in order to save Selena. After the battle and watching Selena nearly die, Dorian does realize that he loves Selena. However, before he is able to tell her about his feelings, Selena does break up with Dorian. This is for multiple reasons. The main one being that she would like to actually have her freedom in 4 years. So upon winning the competition to being King's champion, her contract will say that if she serves in 4 years, she can be free. She doesn't want to be in a relationship with a prince who, of course, will hold her back in a lot of ways. She wouldn't be able to move freely. It would be another set of chains in a lot of ways. So it's the fact that she wants her freedom. She wants to make her own choices. And then on top of that, she doesn't want a secret. You know, there's no way that they would be able to take the relationship public. She would be a employee and servant to the crown, and he is the crown. So it would have to be kept secret, and then once the secret was out, which would happen eventually, there would be an uproar from so many people. So for Selena, the relationship with Dorian is not worth it, unfortunately. But, you know, they're both meant for other people. So it all works out in the end, but it is kind of sad because, you know, I ship everyone. As soon as someone's dating someone, I'm like, oh, I love them together. It's bittersweet. They definitely belong with others, but it hurts for anyone to have their heart broken and have to break up. Last couple of things that happen in Throne of Glass Book 1 is that we see Duke Parrington completely throws Kaltain out of the bus. So he does expose Kaltain as the poisoner of Selena, but claims that she's the sole conspirator. Kaltain is then thrown in the dungeon, sadly. One of the last scenes in the book that we see is the King of Ardalan and Duke Parrington talking, and we find out that both of them are very familiar with ward marks, and that Duke Parrington has a mysterious power to influence minds, thoughts, and emotions. And that, of course, Kaltain was a victim of this. So she was kind of an experiment for them to see how far they could push someone. So poor Kaltain was not acting in her own free will or mind. So Kaltain is not the villain she is made out to be. So last but not least, Selena does end up signing her contract, which of course states that in 4 years, she will be free, having earned her freedom after her service to the king as his champion. However, the King of Ardalan does make it crystal clear that if Selena steps out of line, so if she doesn't return from a job, if she fails to complete a job, that it's her friends who will pay with their lives. So he outright threatens specifically Kaol, but that could be Nehemia is another one of her friends. And so she is left knowing that she can't really rebel against him, because it'd be one thing if it was her own life. She tends to not care about throwing that away, but she is extremely protective of her friends, and specifically Kaol. All right, everyone, and that pretty much wraps up everything noteworthy in Throne of Glass. And so that's all that happened in Throne of Glass Book 1 by Sarah J. Maas. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And of course, I would love to hear your comments, so please let me know if there was anything I missed, or if you felt I didn't explain something enough. I would always love to hear from you. So you all know the drill. Please comment, like, and share, and don't forget to subscribe, and look forward to my next recap and or book review coming up soon.